Having said that, though, he had games where he was absolutely exceptionally good. I would like to keep him, but if we lost him, I don't think, for me personally, it would be something we couldn't replace. So welcome back to Small Earth Alliance FC. Now, the summer transfer window is open. It's a little bit slow at the moment, but it will start to gather some momentum as we go through the following weeks and months. So Birmingham City, as we know, are linked with lots and lots of different players, lots of rumours, and I'm sure we're going to see some interesting signings coming in over the next weeks and months. In this video, however, it's slightly different in as much as we want to discuss the current 5 internationals that Birmingham City have got and have a chat really about whether or not we think that they will stay or whether they want to stay at the club, and indeed whether or not me and Matt would actually think they could play a really important part in League One. Chris Davis has made a recent statement about these internationals, and we'll discuss that as well. So over to Matt, really. There's a number of internationals, Matt, that Chris Davis has said that he wants to have a talk to. So before we get into the 5 and discuss them individually, what's your thoughts on having to approach internationals and ask them if they want to stay? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I read on social media that he had, I think the phrase was ride it out or ride the storm out of League One to get us back into the Championship. So I think he wants the buy-in of the players. I understand the approach of trying to get them on board because no one wants players that don't want to play for a club, do they? However, should they need convincing? They're professional footballers. They get paid a salary. We always say, don't we, Dad, something that really grinds our gears is when players don't turn up and fight for the badge and fight for the club. And I don't want anyone, international or not this season, who's not going to be willing to do that. But I think you're a professional footballer. This conversation in some regards shouldn't actually need to happen. But I'm glad Chris Davis is being proactive in that regard. And I'm sure we're going to go through them one by one. But there are a couple of key ones for me who I think could make a really big difference in League One, to be honest.
Yeah, I've got an issue with this because we've mentioned this in previous podcasts before, whether we go cap in hand to a player and actually, I wouldn't say the word beg them to stay, but we have to ask them to stay, and they're professional players who are still contracted to us. And they were players that were here last season that contributed to the team getting relegated. So it gripes me a little bit that we've got to take that approach and almost got to go to these players. Oh, please stay. Chris Davis's message is what I'll read out that he actually said. He was talking about the international players that we've got and what the chances of them actually staying around. And he said this. I've had a couple of conversations already, but more will happen over the next few weeks as players start to come back in. My message to the players around that is that he's talking about himself. I'm a symbol of exactly that. I'm someone who could well be a manager in the Championship now, possibly even higher, who knows. But I have chosen to come to a club that's going somewhere. It's for me to make the vision, the project, and where we're going with the make it crystal clear to them that they can see that, yes, we're in League One, but we're going somewhere and you want to be part of this. This is exactly the message I'm going to be getting across to those players who maybe are considering where they are right now in relation to where they want to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time to be part of Birmingham City. And I know it's a bit of a polarising thing. Some people love the term the project. Some people really hate the term the project now. It's kind of got a little bit old, I guess, a year in. But it is true, isn't it? This is a project. It's a long-term thing. And we can get talent in with the prospect that you are going to be joining a club with a bright future. 5-year goal to the Premier League. But I said it in the start there when you asked me that, and I'm going to say it again. I don't want any player, international or not, this season who's not going to be willing to show us that passion, that desire, and fight for this brilliant club. So I don't care who they are. If they're not interested, with all due respect, you can go.
Yeah, me neither. I take that. I think most Blues fans would agree with that nobody's going to want players wearing the club badge and putting the shirt on if they don't want to be here. That's crystal clear. For me, though, Matt, it's just the thought of players thinking that they're...
Or even asking.
The players themselves thinking, we're in League One now. I'm too good to play in League One. So I'm just going to toddle along to another club, having been part of the damage that they caused, and they were part of it. That's what really gripes me, that we have to almost go cap in hand to some of these players and say, we'd like you to stay. And they've still got the power to decide whether they want to leave or not. And I totally agree with you. If they want to go, let them go. I won't even give it a second thought because I don't want players either here who don't want to play for our club. But
you could be our best player. You could be a striker banging in 25 goals. If you do not want to be here, I do not want you at this club any longer. It's as simple as that.
I think some of these players, if they do go as well, will regret this if they go, because this team is going to go on to much bigger and better things. and they, can be part of that if they stay. So what I want to do, Matt, if it's okay with you, is go through the 5 players that are
Please,
current internationals and just get your thoughts on whether you think they will stay, but crucially, as a Blues fan, and I'll give my opinion, do you want them to stay? Okay. So the first one is Krystian Beilek. So,
Beilek.
for first one, do you think he'll stay?
So it's no secret if you've been watching this podcast for any period of time, I'm a big Krystian Beilek fan. I'm a big Krystian Beilek fan at centre half. I think he's solid.
Yeah.
I think if he stays, he will genuinely be a top 3 League One centre halves in the division. He's that strong. He's that good. So I think I would love him to stay. And from the conversations I've been hearing, again, all the rumours I've been hearing, I think the conversations are looking good that Krystian Beilek is going to stay with us for the season. And he's actually my one of the 5 who I actually really would like to stay, because I think he's going to make all the difference, and he's going to tighten us up at the back. In League One, lots of long balls, lots of crosses into the box. He's commanding, he's powerful, he's good in the air.
Yeah.
He could make a big difference. And also, I'm going to go one step further. From the players that we currently have, I'd like Krystian Beilek to become our captain next season.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people saying that, Matt, about Krystian Beilek having the characteristics to be a captain. So, in your opinion, then, you want him to stay and you think he will stay?
Yeah,
Okay.
I want him to stay, and I think he will stay.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Out of the 5, he's the one that I would really want to stay.
Definitely. I'm glad you started with him, because
yeah.
he's the one I actually really care about in terms of wanting to stay and progress with the club.
Yeah, and I think if he's been the club now, previously on loan, he's been here, signed for us permanently, so he's been in and around the project. He knows what's going on. I saw, interestingly, when Chris Davies was first introduced or came into the club, one of the people he bumped into at the training game was Krystian Beilek. And so obviously there's speculation about what was said, etc.
It was smiley as well. It was a smiley engagement, which obviously sets the tone that it was a pleasant conversation. So let's hope Krystian Beilek was hopefully giving his intentions for the future.
Well, like I said, he'll know what's going on. He'll know what the club plans are. He's been here long enough to know where this club is going. I think he'll stay for that very reason.
I agree.
Okay, good. Next one then is Koji Myoshi.
So Koji Myoshi, I really like. I think he's very good going forward. He's scored a few goals for us this season. He's quite quick. He's creative. I think we do feel it when he's on his game, opening up those channels and sort of really creating chances. I would like him to stay. Again, I think in League One, he could really do some damage. I think that he is he is high risk of being sold. I think he's going to want to go back to Championship football, if I'm being totally honest. And I have it on good authority that that the Japanese international team won't look at anyone below Championship level. However, we received a really interesting comment from a subscriber recently, and he said about the international criteria to play for South Korean teams and to play for Japanese teams. And he mentioned that a lot of the Japanese players are in Canadian leagues and J leagues and all these sorts of things. But so we'll see what happens there. But for me, I'd like to see Koji stay. I think he could be sold to a Championship team.
Okay. I like him. He did well last season in terms of his assists and, he scored a few goals. Do I think he will stay? I think I'm very much on the fence about whether he will stay. It depends on what other opportunities he is given. But I don't think it's going to harm his international credentials, in as much as I don't think he's played for the Japanese team for the last 4 years, something like that. So he's not a current Japanese first pick, let's say. Do I want him to stay? And I'm still on the fence. And that sounds controversial. I know a lot of Blues fans love Koji Myoshi, and I do too. But I just feel that, the Championship, as physical as it was, I just felt he was pushed off the ball too often. And some games he was quite taken out the game. He was anonymous a little bit. Having said that, though, he had games where he was absolutely exceptionally good. I would like to keep him, but if we lost him, I don't think, for me personally, it would be something we couldn't replace. Mm-hmm. But I would like to keep him. And I know that sounds very much what you're saying, Gary. You're on the fence here. So if I were to answer my own question to you, would you like to keep him? The answer would be yes. I would like to keep him. But do I think he'll leave? And I think the probably answer is highly probable.
Yeah.
I think he could end up leaving.
Yeah. And if you think about a Championship team, you think about like your Middlesbroughs maybe, or your Coventries. I think he'd be a great addition to a team who's in that sort of in and out of sort of the playoff sort of teams in the Championship.
I'm not saying he could definitely do a good job in the Championship. I totally get that. I just think that for us, where we are now in League One, I don't think it's going to harm him to stay in League One, because, like I say, he's not a first pick for Japan at the moment, so he could shoulder a season in League One.
Yeah, and
But-
also as well, the physicality thing you mentioned, you can develop that. You can get stronger. You can do drills on the training ground to enhance your body, your technique with your shoulder barging and all these sorts of things. You can develop on physicality. You can develop on techniques to get stronger. You can't develop talent. You either got talent or you haven't got talent. And I think Koji Myoshi is worth the punt of talent to keep him at the squad. So if he's interested in staying, I think we should definitely keep him.
Okay, all right then.
Yeah.
Next, we go on to Juninho Bacuna.
I have a love-hate relationship with Juninho.
I think most Blues fans do too, yeah.
On his day, there is no doubt about it. He's a quality player, Juninho Bacuna. However, his attitude stinks, doesn't it? If I'm going to be totally honest. Well, sorry, his attitude, not all the time, but he has moments where he's throwing his arms up on the pitch and he's not tracking back. And we can't say it anymore. Though we spoke about it lots on the podcast. We've conceded several goals this season due to his lack of ability to do the dirty side of the game, tracking back. I think that he is prone to be sold. In fact, the rumour mill's already starting. I don't know what his valuation would be. I heard back a couple of months back it'd be sort of in the 5 million range, which I think is outrageous. So I think if we were going to sell him properly, I think at 2 million.
1.5 to 2 million.
1.5 million to 2 million for Bacuna. I think that would be about reasonable.
I think he's got 1 year left on his contract, so that factors into the valuation as well.
Yeah. So do I think he'll stay? No. And do I want him to stay? I'm on the fence. If he puts his head down and changes his attitude and Chris Davies gets everything we know that Bacuna's capable of doing, he can do some serious damage in League One. But if he has those attitude problems or he throws his arms up, he's not tracking back for the team, I don't want him at the club in that instance. So it's a difficult one because you never know which Juninho Bacuna you're going to get, are you? So will he stay? I don't think he will. Do I want him to stay? I'm going to say take the money and run.
Okay.
I think we should sell him.
Yeah, everything you said, I would mirror really. It's the inconsistency that kills me because on his day, he's really good player. He's not unplayable. I think I don't like it when that term's mentioned for any side. He's unplayable. Every player's playable, but he has these games where he just dominates and commands.
I think the only person who demands that respect is someone like Messi. He's the only person who gets the unplayable, not Juninho Bacuna.
Yeah, but when's the last time he put a blue shirt on? But I totally agree with you. I like it when he's on his game. Of course we do. He's got flair. He's got skill. He's got ability. He scores goals. Absolutely no doubt. But for me, very much in the Dembele mould, he's too much of a liability. And I think that what is going to determine this is whether Chris Davies believes that Bacuna can give that level of consistency. That's not just going forward, that's coming back as well. So I think that firstly, do I want him to stay? I'm not bothered.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered. If he stays, great. If he goes, then we get a good, get some money for him, fine. Do I think he will stay? I think he'll probably want to play at a high level and he will probably get that opportunity. So I think he will go.
I think there's better players in that sort of valuation who have the more gritty League One fight about them, whereas opposed to Juninho Bacuna, he can be a little bit lightweight sometimes. He does, as I say, doesn't do the dirty part of the game. I think we can get a much more, I don't mean this disrespectfully, a bit more of a grungy, fighty kind of type player, even in the attacking mids, even in the wings, whatever position you want to, because obviously Bacuna filters, doesn't he? Sometimes he's the centre attacking mid, sometimes he goes out onto the wings. And he can change games, he can have his moments, don't get me wrong. We're not denying that Bacuna is a talented player, but for all the positives, he sometimes completely nullifies it with the negatives, doesn't he? And you've been big on saying that in the past 6 months, where he nullifies the good work by then not tracking back and doing the dirty work. So, same as you. For me, I'm not bothered edging on the side of let's cash in and get the money for him because I know we can replace him with just as much good talent. And I actually think he will go. I think he's one of the ones who possibly would be looking to make a move back into the Championship, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think so as well. Remember, Blues fans, these are our personal opinions, and obviously we know that particularly a lot of these players that we are talking about have a varied opinion across the Blues fan base. So if you do disagree with what we're saying, that's absolutely fine. Just let us know in the comments below. Brings us on to next, Matt. The fourth of the 5 players at internationals is Paik.
Paik?
Yeah.
I like Paik.
Yeah.
I think since he came in, he's made us a lot more front-footed, a lot more progressive. I like the fact that he doesn't shoehorn it round the back. And, Beilek was the first name on the sheet there, Dad, which we spoke about earlier. And I said I like him in the centre back, not centre mid, because Beilek, when he goes past the halfway line with the ball at his feet, he hasn't got a clue what he's doing, does he? He looks like a deer in the headlights. He turns back into his safety zone, whereas we don't get none of that with Paik. And I know they're different styles of centre mids. I get that. But I'm just making a point that Paik is always looking for the front-footed pass. He's always looking forward. And I think, again, similar feedback to Myoshi in that I think he could up his physicality. There was definitely a couple of games at the back end of last season where he was just getting nudged off the ball that little bit too easy. But that can be developed, as I said, for the Myoshi part of the video. And I like Paik. I think I would like to keep him, definitely. If he's up for staying, I'll keep him. Will he go? I actually think Chris Davies is going to convince him to stay, and I think he's going to work with him, and we're going to see a much even better and stronger Paik next season.
Yeah, I don't think we saw the best of him last season. I think
agree.
He came into a team where he came in with originally it was Dazal was his central midfield partnership, and that worked quite well for a few games under Tony Mowbray. And then
Dazal went off the ball though, didn't he?
I think they both did.
They both did, yeah.
They both did, and I think that was partly a result of the change in managers. Obviously, Mark Venus came along, and then it was Gary Rowett, and I don't think that Paik was played to his best abilities in those games. So I think towards the end of the season, I think he wasn't as effective as he had been the first few games. But you can clearly see that there's a really good decent player in there. I would like to keep him as well. I think he's vulnerable to losing him though. I think Chris Davies could convince him to potentially stay, but I don't think there'll be a shortage of interest from him. No. So it depends on what options he has. So yeah, I'd like to keep him, but I think he's highly vulnerable to going. So it really comes down to what Chris Davies can do to keep him there now. So I think both agree that we should keep him if we can. And the final one, Matt, is one that we know has had a lot of publicity and it's going to be ongoing, I think, is Jordan James.
Yeah, okay. I'll keep this one short because we've done quite a bit of coverage on JJ. I think he's vulnerable to going. In fact, we've already heard the rumours, West Ham, Crystal Palace and
Leicester.
Who's the Italian team as
Atalanta.
well? Atalanta. And I think he will go. I think he'll be sold. I think from what I've heard behind the scenes, he was actually looking for a move in January and Blue sort of got in the way and blocked it a little bit. So I think he'll be looking to go. He's vulnerable to go. And if what I've been hearing with the valuations of his market value, if we can cash in on JJ and get a decent price for him, I think he's slightly overrated. So I think sell him.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's obviously came through the Blues Academy. He's been all he's ever known is Blues. I think for him, he might see now the time in his career for him to move on to other things.
Yeah, I mean, when I said sell him, that might have sounded brutal. Like, no hard feelings towards JJ. I thank him for his service to Birmingham City. He's gone through the youth academy, and we've seen him really grow from boy to man, and his game has really developed. So, happily have a beer with JJ, happily shake his hand. No hard feelings, but I think we should cash in on JJ and get the money while we can. And I do think the hype around him is slightly overrated. I don't think he's as good as what people think. And I don't think that if we can cash in on that sort of 5 million plus for JJ, I think we're laughing all the way to the bank personally.
The first question, do I want to keep him? I'm very much in the mould of what I said about Koji Myoshi. I'm not really bothered if we keep him or not. I totally agree. We've seen him develop, haven't we, from a kid to, breaking into the first team to establishing himself, particularly last season, into the first team. So he's done very, very well. But I also agree if we get a decent fee for him, we could use that and in a much more effective way. So would I like to keep him? The answer's probably, I don't really mind. Do I think he'll go? The answer's almost like a definite yes.
I'm interested, Dad. You've been watching him for the past 3 or 4 years with me as well, season ticket holders and stuff. So we've seen a lot of JJ. Do you think he's an overrated player?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
I think a lot of the Blues fans who go to a lot of games and genuinely see the ins and outs of the club and the players think JJ is an overrated player.
He is. I think he's still got a lot of development in him though. So I still think there's lots of potential there to build upon, which is maybe what these clubs are actually seeing and what they're interested in.
Yeah.
So I think as he matures, when he gets into his 24 to 28 year range, I think he will see a much more complete player there.
I mean, the only context where I would like to see him stay is, number one, as we said at the start of the video, if he wants to stay and he showed the passion and the fight and he wasn't holding a grudge because we hold any transfers back, of course. And two, if Chris Davies committed to the centre attacking mid position for him or the centre mid position and didn't put him out on the wings, I think he's so wasted as a winger. He's not a winger.
Yeah.
He's completely nullified. He goes invisible in games.
No, he's got to be central mid.
In the centre mid or the attacking mid, he does very well. So if he hung around and that was his position, position. And Chris Davies really worked with him to develop his game even further. I mean, in League One, he actually could be a real big force to be reckoned with. But I think that's a big ask. That's a lot of variables to go right for that mixture to come good. And I don't know, I've got a feeling in the back of my brain, I've got a feeling it's going to be Atalanta, and I've got a feeling it's going to be somewhere between 5 and sort of 7.5 million.
Yeah, okay. I think it may be worth slightly more than that,
Do
but
you think?
yeah, maybe somewhere between 5 and 10, which is in the range that you said, but maybe sort of towards the higher end of that. So
I'd
maybe
be happy. I think
8, 9, something like that.
me personally, from everything I've seen, I think 5 would be fair. 7.5 would be a steal for us. I think that'd be good business. But
No,
that's just my opinion.
yeah, okay, but I think he also he has a risk as well, doesn't he? If he does stay with the players that we're likely to bring in as well, is he going to be guaranteed a first choice?
Exactly.
So he might think, well, it's time now to go on to pastures new. But it'll be interesting to see with him. I think that'll be
Is
something that will move.
In that instance, we should definitely sell him, because the market value which we're hearing, I think you should take that money and run, especially in League One. And we're already hearing stuff about transfer budgets and how much money the Blues might have. If we can even add to that even more with a sale of JJ, I think we should possibly look at that avenue.
Yeah, I think so. So that's the 5. So what do you think, Birmingham City supporters? Obviously we've got 5 internationals there. Chris Davies has already mentioned in a previous media article that he's going to go and talk to them and try and convince them to what he calls stomach a season in League One. You've heard mine and Matt's opinions on what we think about each of the 5. Some of them we want to keep, some of them we're not too bothered about moving on. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Let us know what your thoughts are on each of the players and whether you'd like to see them stay or you wouldn't mind them going. We do hope, as always, that you like the content of our channel, particularly this video. If you did, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, make sure that you press that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to check us out on our social media channels, and you'll see the handles appearing now on the screen for our X account and for our Instagram page. And myself and Matt will see you on the next video all about Birmingham City.